Welcome to the Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast for fans of Detroit Lions football, NFL football in general, or just my friends and family being supportive. My name is Demetrius. We start every podcast the same way by acknowledging the super producer extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Ward, the godfather of the podcast. If no Mike, no Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. So we always get that out of the way first. We're in the middle of the off season, and we're doing series centered around sort of the what ifs or the greatest this or the most impactful that. Sparked a conversation I was having with my son, and he was like, hey Dad, what's the greatest this? What's the best that? And I started thinking, man, there'll be some good shorts I could drop during the off season. And so just while still talking to Trevor, I had a bunch of good ideas, like while we were talking, and we discussed a couple of weeks ago the worst draft pick of all time. I got some feedback on that. There's some people who disagreed with me. There's some Jeff Okudah fans, no, opposite of fans, who didn't like that pick. And others, but you can go back and check that out in the archives. I asked during that podcast if you guys could give me some ideas, some of your thoughts, some things you guys thought might make sense to do a best or worst of, and I got some really good ideas, right? So I appreciate that. By the way, if you like the podcast, thumbs up. The things you do, for positive feedback, I'll take it. So one of the ideas I got was most important game in Lions history. I thought that was a good idea. I thought that was a good topic. It's been bouncing around, and so the idea is how do you do it? Is it 3 years ago in San Francisco? Important, right? It's the key word. Not necessarily good or bad, just important. And that game 3 years ago in San Francisco was important, right? We were a half away from the Super Bowl. Was it 2 years ago, the debacle against the Commanders? So one of the good topics I got was potentially doing the most important game in Lions history. And I thought maybe we'll do that. So I didn't necessarily say the best, but most important. Could have been the Rams game, first playoff win in 30 years. So we're tossing around ideas. I still need more. I'd still like more ideas. Keep them coming. So could have been a game that got a coach fired. I have one in mind, and I'm probably going to do that podcast soon. So I don't want to mess it up, but I'll keep my choice to myself. Another one I got was greatest coach in team history, which I briefly gave some thought. And then I said, recency bias would say, it's Dan Campbell. What's that podcast? What's that podcast going to be about? It's obviously Dan Campbell. And I thought, maybe let me do a little bit of research. And so then I had to go back to like the 50s, and I thought, man, they won 3 championships in that decade. Do I really need to go back and do my homework on Buddy Parker and George Wilson? How do I want to go about doing that? So I was like, I don't know. And then I briefly thought about those 90s teams, which I enjoyed. Those 90 teams were cool. And so do I want to talk about Wayne Fontes? Because if you Google winningest coach in Lions history, Wayne Fontes' name is going to come up, right? So I thought about, is there really? I thought, nah, he was 67 and 71 overall, 1-4 in the playoffs. And I did a quick comparison to DC and thought, yeah, that's a bad idea. We're not doing Wayne Fontes, that's for sure. Nothing against Wayne Fontes, but it's just he had 67 total wins. Dan Campbell's already got 50. He's going to catch him in a couple of seasons. Like next year, he's going to catch him. Campbell's 3-2 in the playoffs already. Same number of division titles, same number of championship game appearances. So there really wasn't a way to do it. Then I considered, as a man, as a coach, I liked Jim Caldwell. A lot of people don't. This was a whole big thing, 7, 8, 10 years, whenever it was. It was a whole big thing. And I wondered, is there a case for Jim Caldwell? And I decided no. So there's not enough data points for him. Ultimately, Dan Campbell's the winner. Dan Campbell's that topic, and there's not enough there to do it. So it was fun, but I'm not going to do that. Then we got to somebody submitted a really good one that I liked. Second greatest player in team history. Right. Second greatest player in team history. And largely because I think it's a legit conversation, but also because this person was not even willing to accept that there was a conversation for number one. And I don't either. And I think that's kind of we don't need a hat today. I think there's no conversation for number one, really. Is there? Anybody who believes that, okay, we can have another conversation another day. But the question becomes number two, right? And depends on how far you want to go back and how much you really want to look at. I think that, again, there's a recency bias. I like to use the term make a case for, right? There's a recency bias that's going to have a group of people somewhere screaming Megatron, Megatron, Megatron. I get it. That makes sense. I wouldn't, but I'd make a case, right? And if I wanted to go back, there's a guy named Joe Schmidt. You could Google him, right? I did a podcast with Richard Lane a few years ago, and his dad, Dick Night Train Lane, I can make a case for him. That's for sure. We can make a case for him. I think that as much as it would piss people off, or maybe because I know it would piss people off, I could make a case for John Matthew Stafford. I really could. I'm not going to do that now. I'm just saying there is a case to be made. And so I considered those, and we might revisit that. We'll see. So today, though, I wanted to keep it a little more current. And so I decided to go with who's the most important Detroit Lions player for 2026, like this coming season. And so we got to be careful when I say most important, when my air quotes there, in case you're just listening. We have to parse that out. What is most important? What does that term do? Right? It doesn't necessarily mean the best player. In fact, I'm saying clearly, this is not a best player thing. Amon-Ra St. Brown's not on this list. Penei Sewell's not on this list. Because what I want to do is the idea is a singular player who, if they play at a high level, can contribute most to this team going to the Super Bowl. Now, you might say, how is that not the best player? Okay, let's walk through it, right? So there's a bunch of categories that I decided to use, right? Rookies. Mostly these two rookies, right? What if Blake Miller or Derek Moore or even one of the other rookies steps up well beyond what we expect? How could that contribute? Derek Moore might be a better example. If he somehow cements the edge rusher opposite Hutch and has a bunch of sacks, that could be a big deal, right? Rookies are a category. Guys coming back from injury. Three key guys there. It's Kirby, it's Laporta, and Brian Branch. What would it look like to the overall team success if anyone, or God forbid, all three of those guys come back? Branch is going to be a bit, but they come back and they play at the level they left at. What does that mean, right? Organic growth. What if there are players who have been here, but they take a step? You know, Tyleek. What if Mahogany locks down left guard? And there are free agents, guys who join the team. And then there's obviously the no-brainers, right? The obvious choices that could be it, right? So that's where I decided to start, is with the no-brainer obvious. I'm going to kind of go through a couple guys in each category, and then I'm going to give you my actual choice at the end. But in terms of like the obvious, and this is not just a gratuitous way for me to talk about number 16, but it's Goff, right? He's a quarterback. It's almost too obvious, right? They did a ranking yesterday or today, depending on when you're listening, I guess, of the best quarterbacks in the league. And they had Jared Goff rated 9. And I'm not going to flip out somewhere. Andy is thinking, oh no, he's about to do a whole golf dissertation. I'm not. Not 9. I'm cool with fine. I'm cool with 9. That's fine. I, being me, of course, I would have had him higher, but that's just me. And if you've listened to this podcast at any point in the last 3 years, you're probably not surprised. And it's not like I think he's number 1. They had him pretty well ranked in the top 5 anyway. It was Allen, Mahomes, Stafford, Burrow, and Lamar. I wouldn't debate any of those. I'm comfortable with those 5. 6, 7, and 8. I got a problem. We're not going to do that. I'm just going to quickly say Dak, Herbert, and Drake May were 6, 7, and 8, and Goff was 9. I'm going to get back to the topic, but we know it's Goff, so I got to do a little bit. I don't know what the thing is with Dak other than the team he plays for. I don't know why people think. I don't know. What has Justin Herbert done? What has Justin Herbert accomplished? I got no issue with Drake May other than the sample size. We don't know enough. I probably would have had Goff 6. That's enough. But the data says it. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, and somebody's probably going to jump in the comments and start giving me the smoke about Jared Goff, and that's fine. I think that what I know is that the last 3 years, Jared Goff's played 17 games, all 3 seasons. What I know is that his completion percentage is roughly 70, very high in the league. I know that he's been over 4,500 yards all 3 years, and his touchdown to interception is 33 to 11, some average like that. I think he was 37 and 12 2 years ago, but it averages out to be about 33 to 11, and his quarterback rating is like 104. So Goff's obvious choice for the most important player. That's too easy. So we're not picking Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs was my 1A pick. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's about to have a monster season. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be an MVP candidate. His production is going to increase because of the mindset. They have made no secret all offseason. They have used words like workhorse. They intend for Jahmyr to be the lead back in an old school lead back formula. Like in the last few years, his touches have gone up a little bit each year. Systemically, total touches, but he was sharing the backfield. First, it was Jamal. Then it was the last 2 years, it was Demo. But 3 years ago, he had 240-ish touches. 2 years ago, he got up to 300. And this past season, he was like 320. I expect Jahmyr to touch the ball 350 to 360 times this year. I expect him to go over 2,000 all-purpose yards. And I wouldn't be shocked to see 23 to 25 touchdowns. Some MVP type stuff. They are making no secret. That's their intent. It's time he can do that. So Jahmyr Gibbs would be a really good choice. And he was my 1A choice, I would say. Had to excuse me, we got to stay lubricated. Keep the voice going. My other sort of obvious choice is Aiden Hutchinson. Right. He came back from his injury, put up 14 or 14 and a half sacks, 35 or so solo tackles and forced fumbles, did everything he's supposed to do. He is defensive player of the year type numbers. If he gets better, and he probably can, he maybe can, and he puts up 18 to 20 sacks, that's the kind of thing where somebody could be the reason. But I almost expect that from him. We need that from him. So those 3 guys are obvious. Goff, Jahmyr, Hutchinson, obvious choices for most important Lion. And I'm not picking any of them because they're too obvious. So the second group is young players. These are players, there's a couple guys who have been around. And if they were to step up, like make a step change in their performance, they could be difference makers. It could be the reason. The first one is Tyreek Williams. I think that for Tyreek, it is about interior pass rush, right? He had a mixed rookie season. He only had 1 sack, 2 or 1. I think he only had 1 sack. He called his own play like C+ level play. And I think if he develops as an interior pass rusher, he can change the game, right? He helps the outside guys. He helps with the run. But I think that all in all, he played in all 17. I think he started 9 or 10, played well over 400 snaps. And that's about a 40% snap share. It's called the number of snaps he could have played to what he actually played. I think that's going to go up. I think DJ Reader leaving is going to cause that to go up. And I think he's going to be better. I think he had a pretty good split of his snap distribution. 220 snaps against the run, 220 snaps against the pass. That's important when you're measuring interior pass rush and run stoppage. I think a big time step up by Tyleek could be a difference for the defense, considering all of the issues going on behind him, which we'll get to. The other guy, and I don't know, Christian Mahogany, I don't know if he's going to start at left guard. Juice Scruggs could start. But let's say we're in a world where Mahogany walks in the door and just takes the job, right? Just takes the job. He broke his leg last year against Minnesota and missed some time. And he was struggling with pass pro anyway. Let's say Mahogany comes in and just takes that job. Now Juice Scruggs is a backup, which is a good thing. I mean, not nothing against Juice Scruggs. You have more depth. You have more depth in your offensive line, which is, I will say more than once, is the most important unit on this team. Period. So let's say Mahogany comes in and he's ready. He's ready to take the job, be the starting left guard. There's going to be injuries, but he's got to get much better in pass pro. And he was middle of the pack in Pro Football Focus in terms of overall rating. So that would be a surprise, a pleasant surprise, and it could be a significant difference if he were to come in. And my third growth guy, and it's huge, right, because of everything, is Ennis Rakestraw. If it's my dark horse, right? If he comes in and decides he's the number 2 corner on the other side of DJ Reed, now Rock Ya-Sin can be flexible, play slot, play corner, back up if somebody gets hurt. He is a massive wild card. And I think if he can take that outside corner spot opposite DJ Reed, and his issue isn't that he's a bum, despite what some people might want to say. It's been health. He needs to stay healthy. I think he's probably a good player. I don't know. I have no data to back that up because he hasn't played enough games, right? So if he comes in and he was healthy for both OTAs and the mini camp. So he has been healthy all spring from he hurt what was his injuries? I think he had a hamstring and a shoulder. He just needs to stay healthy. So I think if Rakestraw comes in, this is a dark horse candidate for this sort of award that I'm passing out today. He could be, it would be such a big difference. If he comes in and locks down the number 2 corner spot, again, similar to what Juice Scruggs would do depth-wise, Rock Ya-Sin, McCreary, and some of these other depth corners can be depth corners because Rakestraw locks down the number 2 spot. And a healthy DJ Reed I don't even think it's a lot to ask. It was a 2nd round pick. I don't think it's a lot to ask for Rakestraw to come in and lock down that number 2 spot. So those are my hopes there. Jameer is my 1A. He would be my number 2 above my actual choice. My next category is comebacks. These are players coming back from injury. And the key is if they come back and they're what they were before they were hurt, because the 3 guys I'm going to mention were Pro Bowl level. Not even Pro, they were all 3 of them are Pro Bowlers, I think. So the obvious ones are Brian Branch. Tough call because I don't know that we're going to see him before Thanksgiving. He ruptured his Achilles in December. Yeah. So my guess, because they're not sharing a ton of information, I would be surprised if we see BB before Thanksgiving. But if he comes back and he's the old Brian Branch, he's not old. He's like 3rd year. The Brian Branch we saw before, or he comes back sooner, the problems on the back end get better. They get easier. Brian Branch will be a great comeback ad. And perfect segue, Curb. If Kirby Joseph, similar situation, he's got a lingering knee thing, and we don't know what it is. We don't know how bad it is. We don't know what the recovery time is. Man, if both of those guys come back, life is a lot easier. Curb, it might just be a deal of he didn't have surgery. He didn't need surgery, however you want to put it. I think the medical team decided surgery wasn't absolutely necessary. Kirby Joseph comes back, and it is the same Kirby Joseph, and it might just be pain management, which would suck because if there's no way to fix it, it's only a matter of time, right? But he didn't participate in either the OTAs or minicamp, so I'm not nearly as optimistic as I am about Ennis Rakestraw. But if Kirby Joseph were to come back, Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph were to come back, these are players that change your entire defense. They change every aspect of your defense. So these are guys who could be hugely important. Their returns could be hugely important to what the Lions are ultimately able to do this season. And my third comeback choice is Sam Laporta, who is very critical in terms of the tight end position. For Sam Laporta, he's supposedly healthy. He has participated. It was a back injury, herniated disc. Sam looks good. It looks like Sam's good to come back. I expect, for a lot of reasons, I'm going to talk about one of them in a minute, for a lot of reasons, for Laporta to bounce back with a huge year. In fantasy football, Laporta is going to be highly rated tight end for me. I think you're going to see around 80 catches. If you don't see 700-800 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns, I'd be shocked. I think we're going to get really high level of productivity out of Sam Laporta this year coming back from the back injury because they shut him down pretty early. He had plenty of time to recover. So I think it's going to be a good year for Laporta. But think about those 3 injured guys and what it looks like to have them back, to get back 3 Pro Bowl level guys in Branch, Laporta, and Kirby. Of the 3, I am least optimistic about Kirby. Branch will eventually come back. It's just a matter of time. I wish it was week 5 and not week 10. But if you force me, I would think Thanksgiving. Laporta, I'm very optimistic about both his comeback, him being 100%, and his season in general. Next category are draft picks. Really, there's only 2 to consider. There's some guys later that could. There's a corner back there who could be impactful. But today we're talking about who are the most important Lions of 26. And I don't know that a 5th round corner or something like that really fits here. But Blake Miller does. The 17th overall pick walks in the door, hopefully, just locks down right tackle. Right now, you've got him on the other side of Sewell because you've kicked Sewell over to the left side. You're anchored on both ends of the line. That's about pass protection. That's about 16 having time to do what he does. Just walk in and take the job. No questions. That's no disrespect to Larry Borum because he's a good player. And again, similar to my thoughts on Drew Scruggs at guard or Rakestraw or Rock Ya-Sin at corner, for Blake Miller to come in and take the right tackle job, just as it would be for Mahogany to come in and take the left guard job, or for Rakestraw to come in and take the CB2 job. This allows depth. This allows Larry Borum to be a backup, and he can bounce left or right, play either one. Blake Miller started 54 straight games in college at Clemson. He wasn't at a small school. He was at Clemson. That screams durability. This could be really important if this were to happen, where Blake Miller comes in and through his play and through his durability, just lock down right tackle, because we haven't had to sweat the right tackle position for 4 years, right? Now we get a massive upgrade at left tackle by kicking Sewell over. Now you probably have one of the best 2 or 3 left tackles in the league. If Blake Miller walks in the door and gives you high-level right tackle play, you're getting to a theme that you're going to see me narrow in on right now, which is offensive line play, right? The other rookie, Derek Moore, it's almost the same thing on the other side. He's got high upside in terms of situational pass rush. If he walks in the door and says, "Nice to meet you, DJ Wanham," hopefully I didn't pronounce that wrong. "Nice to meet you, DJ Wanham, but I'm gonna go ahead and start at right end." Okay. Same thing. I've said it 3 times. DJ Wanham now becomes depth, becomes the backup, a really good backup, becomes a guy who plays when somebody else is injured, and somebody's always going to be injured. That's the importance. When I talked about Mahogany and Rakestraw and Miller and Moore, those guys are on this list. They're important because they're young, they're cost control because they're all on rookie deals. And if they walk in the door and they take these jobs, critical jobs, left guard, CB2, right tackle, right end, take these jobs, the guys you also brought in are depth guys now. And you are just later in the season, you're better because you have depth. And this is a 2nd round pick. I don't see why a 2nd round pick couldn't come in and become your starting right end. He has upside for double-digit sacks. The terms I hear about him are relentless motor, strong first step, win rate. Yeah, I take all that, right? Right. So both the rookies could come in and have immediate impact just by taking the jobs that they were drafted to take, and how that pushes good players like DJ Wanham or Larry Borum down the depth chart. No disrespect to them. It's a depth thing. And my last category is free agents. Free agents, guys who came over from other teams, fill a role. And some of it might be, if you fill the role, you give us an opportunity to get back to 2024 Lions, 15-2, 1 seed. But not for those injuries. We're not going to do that podcast today. First one's Isaiah Pacheco, right? We all know David Montgomery went to Houston. This is the RB2 spot for us. And it's going to be a traditional RB2. There is going to be a conceptual change. I talked about Jameer earlier, and I used the word workhorse. I talked about how many carries I think he's going to see this year. He's going to get more catches as well. Jameer's going to be a workhorse, but you still need a complement. And Isaiah Pacheco is in a very similar mode as David Montgomery. Hard running dude. You can call him Knuckles 2.0 if you want. He won't get the number of touches Demo got 2 years ago. It'll be something similar to last year, which Demo didn't like, which is why Demo's in Houston. And I like David Montgomery. That's not shade. Simply put, Jahmyr Gibbs is on a different level, and you've got to put the ball in that kid's hands. So Pacheco understands that role. He's willing to come in. There'll be times where we'll just need tough yards. Jahmyr will need a spell. He's on this list largely, though, because I really like Isaiah Pacheco. And if Gibbs were to go down for a game or 2 games, I don't know that we'd fall off too bad. Pacheco and some combination of Craig Reynolds or Sione Vaki, somebody could get us through a short term. If Gibbs goes down long term, it is what it is. We're in trouble like anybody else. He is that important. But what I see in Pacheco is that he's a decent receiver as well. And if Jahmyr were to go down for a short period, I don't know that we have to necessarily fall off too much offensively. That's why I like Pacheco. That's why he's on this list. His role is important. That Demo role was important. It was important when it was Jamal Williams. That second back in Detroit will be a little less important, but still really important. So Isaiah Pacheco has potential to be a major contributor. This was not just some weak, non-important signing. The second free agent, as I mentioned him earlier, is DJ Wanham. And I keep saying Wanham, and I'm pretty sure it's Wanham. That's fine. He should contribute. I talked about Derek Moore coming in, shaking his hand, and making him a backup. I don't know if that's going to happen. What I do know is that this guy can set the edge against a run. So early down play, that's what it might be. Early down plays DJ, pass situations is more, mixing and matching. I like the idea of a competition, but if he can give us that early setting the edge for on early downs opposite Hutch, and more importantly, I think it's the combination. So while they're on this list individually for different reasons, the better way I could have put it, and that might be one, even above my actual final choice, if the combination of Moore and I'm going with Wanham, Moore and Wanham is 18 sacks, right? Something 16 sacks, really giving us an opposite Hutch threat. It's critical because of all the problems on the back end. Kenny's boy kidnapping people down in Florida. He gone. The safeties are hurt. I don't even know Kenny's name. For those of you who don't know, Kenny is my brother and he hates Terrion Arnold. So he's probably actually somewhere partying right now. But that's a whole deal. I don't even want to give that air right now. But the CB2 situation, which Rakestraw might solve, Rock Ya-Sin might solve. But man, we spent the first round pick on somebody we thought solved it, and he decided to kidnap somebody. So, okay, great. If Moore and Wanham give us a true edge opposite Hutch, it creates some things up front. And I think we're solid at linebacker. I didn't mention any linebackers, did I? Nope. That can help the back end through whatever until Branch gets back or while Kirby gets healthy. That would be huge. So it's really as much as either of them individually belong on this list and can contribute, the two of them together probably is really the thing I'm most excited about. And then wild card, who I listed as a free agent because I didn't know where to put him, is the new offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing, right? Here's a couple of things where he might be number one with a bullet, more than the guy I picked, more than Goff, more than Gibbs, more than anybody. It could be Drew Petzing because his scheme, right, has a heavy running back feature that will maximize Jahmyr Gibbs because they got a term called explosive play rate, right? When he was in Arizona, he's projected to have a higher pass rate, and a lot of it's going to be play action. And you know who's one of the best quarterbacks in the league in play action? That guy. He is one of the best in the league. But historically, Drew Petzing's schemes featured really high neutral passes and a heavy play action, which I'm excited about. I think the offense is actually going to be better, and I'm going to tell you why. Well, it aligns with what Jared Goff does. From 23 to 25, 2023 to 2025, Petzing had one of the top explosive play rates in the league, one of the top 3 or 4. That is big plays, big plays. Think about Jahmyr Gibbs, big plays, right? And even his explosive pass plays out of the 13 sets. So they cute term 13 sets. All that means is 1 running back, 3 tight ends, 13, right? That's why Laporta is important. That's why the signing of Ty Conklin is important. All these little things they're piecing together to get back to being this explosive offense that is run efficient, which then creates play action. I think you're going to see some big explosive plays this year out of Drew Petzing's offense. And some of it's going to be scheme. Some of it's going to be more workload for Jahmyr. Some of it is going to be 16 is an efficient, smart, exceptional play action passer. But my choice, those are all options. All the people I mentioned are really good options. I like them all. They're important. But my choice is none of those, right? If you go back last year multiple times, and even middle of the season 2 years ago, I did one of the pods that might have been most important lion. Not the same as this. Critical maybe or something like that. But I consistently said, hey, you can lose this, that, or the other thing. Last year, I wouldn't even hear the talk about the dude in Chicago. I don't even like to mention his name. Chicago's coach. Fine, whatever. I don't really care about him. They can have him. And Aaron Glenn, losing the coordinators was a big deal. But I consistently said the same thing. The biggest loss from 24 to 25 was Frank Ragnow. I don't even think it was a question. And I think he tried to come back. The importance of Frank Ragnow was that the offensive line is the engine, no pun intended, of this team. Not just the offense, but the team. Go back to the 15-2 season. That offensive line was stellar. That offensive line dictated games, right? And the effectiveness of that running game, everything the Lions do offensively is predicated on running the football. I've said 4 times in this podcast, Jared Goff is one of the best play action passers in the league. You know when you can't do play action is when you can't run. It's the running game is critical to everything that they do. All due respect to Graham Glasgow, who tried, and the combinations they tried. But you can see in what they've done this year, what they think, what they did last year when they drafted Tate Ratledge. They drafted Blake Miller this year. But to me, the most important, not the best player, not the most critical, not just going to have the best stats. The most important player for 2026 is Cade Mays. He is not Frank Ragnow. Let me be very careful. But that offensive line now with a second-year guard on his right, potentially a third-year project guard on his left, or even Drew Scruggs on his left, the interior. I'm not worried about outside. I'm not worried about the outsides. Penei Sewell, Blake Miller, pass pro will be better. They will hold down the outside. Cade Mays is a really, really good football player. He is not Frank Ragnow. That's the last time I'm saying it. But if he can get us back close to what we had, an anchor in the middle of that line who can protect metaphorically through how he calls the schemes, identifying the defenses, shifts, different things that they do on the offensive line that we can't see during the game. We know about it. We just upgraded at the center position in a major way. That's why you drafted a guard last year. You drafted a tackle this year. You signed your all-pro tackle to a record deal a year and a half ago, and you went out and signed the best center on the market. I'm not the only one who believes that everything they do is predicated on offensive line play, particularly interior offensive line play. And you sign tight ends that can block. At the end of the day, when this physical, mauling, blocking style that Cade Mays brings to this team, it changes. It stabilizes the interior of the offensive line. It makes Jared Goff better. It makes Jahmyr Gibbs better. It's going to make Laporta better. It's going to make the Lions offense much better. And like I said, Mahogany or Borum on his left, who knows? You got Tate on the right, second-year guy. Cade Mays is critical. I'm not worried about the tackle positions. They're both going to be solid. Sewell could have been on the list. He could have been number 1 on the list because now he's over at left tackle. But the offensive line, which I said earlier, maybe twice, and I'll say it again, is the most important unit on this football team. And if Cade Mays brings us anything near Frank, anything near what Frank gave us 2 years ago, solidify it, stabilize it, everything changes. Go watch film from last year. That's it. Jared Goff didn't have a bad year. Jared Goff played the way he's played the last 3 years. One of the best 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the league, right? Not 9. 7, I might buy. 6 is what I think. Jared Goff played well. ASB did what he does. He's going to catch 115 passes. He's going to drive everybody. J-Mo took a step up. Top 5 in yards. Laporta, when healthy, one of the best 5 tight ends in the league. The key thing, the critical thing is the offensive line, and even more narrow, it's the interior of the offensive line. So I would say to you that as the interior improves, the run game improves. Pass pro is going to be fine because of the tackles. This allows Jared Goff to do what he does best, play action. I am obviously optimistic. There is a reason this is called the Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. I'm an optimist in life. I am an optimist about this football team. And I do believe we are about to bounce right back. People will say, oh, it's soft schedule. Okay. I'm not even denying that may or may not be true. I don't think it's as easy to go year to year and say what the schedules are. But when I looked at the schedule, and I think me and my brother texted each other, me and my friend Art texted each other, I'm not gonna lie and tell you I didn't see 13 wins on that schedule, maybe 14. But it is not just because I'm a cornbread eating, Kool-Aid drinking slappy. That is 100% true, but that's not the only reason. I just spent 45 minutes breaking down the why. I believe Ennis Rakestraw is going to stay healthy and play well. I know what Jared Goff is. I know what Jahmyr Gibbs is. I know what St. Brown and Laporta and Sewell. There's talent all over the place. But I believe that over the last 2 years, they have addressed this offensive line is solid and should be for the foreseeable. Cade Mays is young and signed a 3 or 4 year deal. Sewell signed. Tate and Blake Miller are first and second year players. They did everything right. Go address the line. We'll figure out the corner situation. We're not going to draft any more kidnappers. We'll figure it out. But my list, while you can disagree, fine with that. Cade Mays is the biggest player, most important piece. Because Goff's going to do what Goff's done the last 3 years. Gibbs is going to be better, probably an MVP conversation. It will all largely be because the offensive line got fixed. That's my opinion. So that's my list. Do with it what you want. I still need ideas for some more of these off-season podcasts. I think I'm going to do second greatest player in history in the next week to 10 days. If you actually believe there's a discussion around first, you're just a different kind of cat, and I don't think I want to talk to you. So we're going to do second greatest. I'm open to ideas, comments, suggestions, other topics. But hopefully you enjoyed it. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up, whatever it is you do. I hope you come back, getting the voice back ready for the regular season. But it was fun, and I appreciate you listening, and we'll talk soon.